which is one of the very important topic. I think many people don't want to talk about death and dying. Usually, nobody wants to think about that. Nobody wants to talk about that. And Buddhists, we always talk about death and dying. We always think about death and dying, which is completely opposite what usually the people think. But here one concept which is nobody wants to think about, and here one thing they want to talk, they want to think. Two different concepts. But the reason is completely same reason. Why they don't want to talk about death and dying? Because they have fear, they have suffering of fear. So that's why they don't want to talk. And the other side, the Buddhists, we are talking death and dying, we think about death and dying. The reason is because we have fear, same reason. So we have a suffering of fear of death and dying, that's why we talk, that's why we think. So in order to get rid of that suffering of fear of death and dying, there's a two-way choice. There's a one way, don't think about that, don't talk about that. That's the one path they choose, and they try to avoid it. And here there's, to get rid of that fear, death and dying, it's because of that fear, they talk worse than that. That's very clear. So it is very important to really, understand, really, cognize what are the causes of fear of death, why I have a fear. So here, one of the main causes of fear of death is human attachments. That's the makes us fear. So we have so much attached. We have attached to our families, we have attached to our material life, we have attached to our power, reputation, resource, and everything. As long as attached, then of course, when death comes, you will going to be separated. So that's why we don't want to separate with these things. So that's why we have a fear, oh, I will going to lose my family. I will going to lose this or that. So that's why we have fear. So one of the main causes of suffering or fear of death is our own attachments. As long as attachments there, always fear always there. So if you have a very strong attachments, you might have very deep fear of death, suffering or fear of death. If you have so many attachments, you have so many fear of death, depend on our attachment. So if we want to get rid of fear of death, what we have to do? Just prayer is not going to stop, right? That's very clear. Just reciting mantras, these are not enough. So fear, because of I have attachments, very much emphasized in this life, material lives. So as long as that causes is there, then of course results always be there. Result always be there. So cause and result is, the result is fully dependent on the causes. So if you don't want that result, the fear of death, we have to get rid of the causes of fear of death, which is that attachments. So usually when you have really fear about that, when you hear this, when sometimes fearful disease comes, then you have fear, I'm going to die. So when you think that, it's not because of disease makes me fear. Disease are the just condition, the fear which is within our mind stream there. So the fear because of attachments. So the attachment is part of our mind. So the fear is inside, within our mind. Disease is just for condition, because even people might be, we have disease, as long as when you don't recognize the disease, you don't have that much fear. Then go to the hospital and done checking here, then doctor say, oh, you have something, something, something. Then psychologic, immediately fear. immediately something you have completely different way. Which is, if the disease is the only the causes of death, of course, as long as when the disease, you have to be fear, right? When the disease is there, till you not recognize, you don't have that. When you identify you have this or that problem, disease, then fear comes. So that comes within the mind stream. So that's clear telling us that fear, which is because of when you identify that, then one of your mind thinking, now I'm going to lose my family. I will going to lose everything. All everything will be going to separate. So that's because of that thinking, it creates you fear, worry, then depression, then stress, then feel lonely, then all those superstitious thoughts will come, everything comes. Then really it's, put your mind too much down, very down, cloudy mind, painful mind, sadness, very fearful there. So that source comes from attachment. So we should really, today, when you are healthy, when you're able to think, that's the time we have to prepare to deal with that causes. When you are already on this situation, very difficult. Your mind is fully dominated by, fear. When your mind is fully dominated by fear, depression, stress, you can't think. You can't, able to think that. Because in order to think, in order to, fight to those mind, those, fear, you need mental power, inner strength. You need inner willpower. So when your minds become very depressed, when your mind become very weak, there's no energy in order to fight. So when you are in that situation, then sometimes if you are not familiar before, when you get that situation, then very difficult to fight back. Then makes you more scared, makes you more worry, more depression. So your mind is full of suffering, full of sadness, very painful, very, heavy unpleasure, feelings there. So if you want to get rid of those suffering, these are possible. If these sufferings are impossible, then we don't need to think. But these sufferings are possible because those sufferings created by our own mental afflictions. It's not about the external material. It's not about the disease or any other circumstances. The root causes of those psychological, pain, suffering, fear, it's created by our own mind, which is attachment. One of the main things is attachments. So attachments are curable, are changeable. These are the mind. If we think, if you really try it, this mind can reduce. Eventually, this mind can disappear. It's possible. So today, when we are fresh, when we are healthy, when your mind is, strong, we should use those mind and really try to deal with that causes of fear of death. So if you don't do it today, then when these things comes, then very difficult. How much try? It's very, very tough, because only the person who can able to fight the fear of death is only the individual. This is completely self-responsibility. You have to fight. You have to get rid of your inner fear for death. External things like a pain and all these things, doctors and medicines and the injection and all this can do, something. But the internal pain, the fear of death, depress, fear, worry, these inner pain, you have to do that. Nobody can able to do. This is completely self-responsibility. We should really think, that's my responsibility. If you don't take self-responsibility, then when you really facing to the dying, when you are in dying, then really very difficult, very, very difficult life, very. So then you're complaining, you're angry, you shouted, screaming, whatever you do is not going to change that. It's maybe only the drugs put it and just sleep. That's maybe the choice. Then death in life, same sort of, well, you just blind mind, nothing that much. So rather, we should prepare today. It's very important.